South Africa won the 5 ODIs against West Indies, bringing curtains to their tour. Let's kind of look at those 5 games on this edition of The Outside View, presented by Fasten Up. Let's start first by talking about South Africa. I have alongside me Ananya Upendran as well. Ananya, let's start by talking about the batting pillars of South Africa. There's Lee, there's Laura Wolvaardt, and also Mignon du Preez. The others perhaps pretty much didn't have much to do, you can say. Your thoughts on how that shapes up for them?
Yeah, well, I tweeted this during the series that, Lee, Laura Wolvaardt, DANE, NIEKERK, Marizanne Kaap, Mignon du Preez. Look at that South African lineup, and it's very, very scary. So and over the last, say, couple of series or the last couple of years, Laura Wolvaardt and Lee have done a lot of the heavy lifting for them, which means their middle order hasn't had to do too much. It was the case in this series as well, where Mignon du Preez just played a couple of innings, but of course she did fantastically well in those innings. But Lee, I feel like has been in brilliant form over the last couple of years. I mean, that tour to India, she was the best batter in that lineup by far. Again, this series, the highest run getter for South Africa by a long way as well. So those two have formed a very formidable partnership. I think they can kind of argue that they are probably the best opening partnership in the women's game at the moment.
Yeah, indeed. Lee, of course, the only player to score over 200 in that 5 ODI series, but for the skipper, DANE van Niekerk, it was a welcome return to international cricket, to leading South Africa. She was really good with the ball, wasn't she?
Yes, she was very good with the ball. I mean, finished as the highest wicket taker, 8 wickets. And I think more than the wickets, it's the way she bowled, the situations that she bowled in that were, very, very impressive. I think she bowled with great control, as she has through her career. But, when you compare the quality of leg spinner she is with the likes of Lee, who's kind of still finding her mojo again, you can see that there's a huge difference in the quality of bowlers that they are. But it was great to see her back, leading the side. And you can see that South Africa feel like a different beast under her. They're so much more intense, very clinical with the way they go about their business. And, this South African team feels like going into that 2022 World Cup, they could be huge contenders.
Yeah, indeed. I also remember her scolding her teammates in that T20 World Cup last year. But DANE van Niekerk, 8 wickets, as you said, the leading wicket taker. But you just zoom into that bowling attack and you see a very penetrating attack comprising Shabnim Ismail, Ayabonga Khaka, Marizanne Kaap, of course. It's really a strong bowling attack, isn't it?
It is an extremely strong bowling attack, and Mignon du Preez said this back in 2016 when I had spoken to her that, I think we have the best pace bowling contingent in the world. And at that point, there was Shabnim Ismail, Marizanne Kaap and Ayabonga Khaka were part of that attack. They also had Moseline Daniels, the left armer, but, they weren't as big names as they are now. And but they are a fantastic attack. And while, all the eyeballs are on the likes of Kaap and Ismail because of the pace and the swing and the accuracy, I think Ayabonga Khaka kind of makes that pace attack because she's such a versatile bowler. She can bowl with the new ball, comes in the middle overs and kind of builds the dots, she builds the pressure, and she's also a fantastic depth bowler with her change-ups and the Yorkers. So when Kaap and Ismail don't quite get the early wickets, I think South Africa have the luxury of falling back on someone like Khaka, and she's probably one of the best change bowlers in the world. So fantastic pace trial, but then they also have the spin of Van Niekerk. I think Chloe Tryon's come a long way with her left arm spin. Lee seems to be finding a bit of form, and then there's Mbaba and Shangase as well. So a good rounded attack. They've got some good backup bowlers as well.
Yeah, after this series, I'm sure DANE van Niekerk will have a good sleep thinking about how strong her team is. But yeah, they were leading 4-1 South Africa. They almost had a chance to make it 5-0. And it almost seemed as if all was lost for West Indies, but that wasn't the case. One bright spot as we move on to talking about the West Indies was Rashada Williams. The youngster, I mean, it's almost her second series. She made her debut against Pakistan. Ananya, how impressive was she?
She was very, very impressive. I mean, I know she didn't score her runs at a fast pace, but when you look at the way West Indies went through this series, just the fact that she was so solid, and saw off the likes of Ismail Kaka class, in those early periods, she looked extremely solid, and I think she's one of the finds of the series for the West Indies, one of those lone bright spots. And she fell short of her first half century in the previous game. I think it was in the third or the fourth ODI. And to cross that milestone in the final ODI and then bat through the innings was extremely impressive. She made sure that she did the job when no one else was able to do it. So a lot's to take away for her. I hope West Indies kind of invest in her in the long haul. She's someone that could become one of the top batters in that side.
Yeah, and talking about top batters or top players, DOTTIN's name has to be one up there. If you talk about West Indies, she's played almost a decade of international cricket for them, but the final ODI was the first time we saw her as the skipper of West Indies, and they went on to win that game via super over. Your thoughts on how she captained and of course her form as well?
Yeah, well, I think she should say that she doesn't want to captain anymore. She has 100% record, so kind of quit while you're ahead. But the way she captained, I think it was quite impressive. You could see the fight in the West Indies. They had runs on the board. They looked like they believed in that bowling attack. I think they fielded a lot better than they did through the series, and also meant that DEANDRA took responsibility of bowling those crucial overs. She came in and bowled that last over, defending I think 6 runs. So she was quite impressive. Of course, she had the help from the likes of Shakira Selman, and you could see her always in her ear, kind of telling her what to do. Hayley Matthews as well; they were always around her. So she was quite impressive, and I think what showed through that final ODI with DOTTIN was that she was just so much more involved in the game than she generally otherwise is. So if that's the kind of responsibility that gets her going and maybe performing better for West Indies, and maybe that's something that they could consider, maybe pushing her into a leadership role if necessary.
Yeah, true that. But talking about leadership, there was this news that Stafanie Taylor was out of this series against South Africa. Anisa Mohammed was made the captain, 4-0 down. And we talk about cricket being a team sport and individual brilliances count just a little bit. But how reliant or how over-reliant are West Indies on Stafanie Taylor, you think?
I mean, this is a discussion we've been having for a long time now, that, that the batting lineup kind of just revolves around Stafanie Taylor. There are contributions sometimes from Hayley Matthews and DeAndra DOTTIN, but they aren't as consistent as they could be or should be for the quality of players that they are. So all the onus is on Stafanie Taylor. And I think there's no doubt that she is kind of their kingpin, and oppositions kind of feel that as long as she's there, West Indies are a threat, and when they remove her, not so much. So I think West Indies have to kind of figure out how they can develop batters around her, which is why I said someone like Rashada Williams needs to be invested in, so that when she plays alongside Taylor, she understands how games can be won. And going into that World Cup, West Indies still have to qualify for it, but that as long as Stafanie Taylor's in the middle, West Indies may be a threat, but they need to find people around her, and quickly.
Yeah, fair point. That 4-1 is the margin that West Indies lose by. Their next assignment, of course, as Ananya said, is the World Cup qualifier in November in Zimbabwe. It's believed that the cricketing world needs West Indies to look competitive, to look good. So we hope that they qualify and get back to the World Cup as well. And that's it from this edition of The Outside View, presented by Fasten Up.